it's going to go up.
That'll make a difference. Hello and welcome to Credit Versio's Q&A Wednesday live for April 6th. I'm your host, David Michalek. I'm a consumer credit expert with nearly 10 years experience. And during that time, I've conducted over 10,000 one-on-one credit consultations, which have resulted in over 1 million disputes and tens of thousands of inaccurate accounts being deleted from credit reports. And I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you what I've learned over the years. And that's why we do these Q&A calls every Wednesday. We do it on both Facebook and YouTube. And you've probably heard me say this before. Our credit report and scores play an enormous role in so many areas of our life. Our insurance company, landlord, mortgage broker, banks, and even employers are looking at our credit report to see how we honor our obligations. Credit reports have evolved into something more than just a credit report. They have become reputation reports. They are our adult report cards, and they tell the story of what you and I do when we are entrusted with credit. And again, that is why we're here every Wednesday to talk about credit. So if you're new, please introduce yourself. See, we got a handful of people watching. Just found out from my partner sitting across from me that we are a little bit late sending out the invitation email. We didn't account for the time change. Sometimes these things happen. It's been crazy busy around here, but hopefully we'll have some people jumping on board here with the live and asking me some questions. So I always like to start out by talking about what happened this week since we did our last live, the questions that I've got. And largely in this space, the credit repair space, the credit improvement space, we pretty much get the same, 25, 35 questions all the time. And sometimes when they become really popular for a certain week, I like to bring them up and then flesh them out, talk about them a little bit. And while I'm doing that, feel free to ask your question. You don't have to stick with the script. If you've got something that's off topic, if you want to talk about your credit repair, credit Versio, disputes, advice on credit, that's what I'm here for. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is a comment that I got on Facebook. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. And I saw a couple of these, and one of them said, hey, I just got the results back from my first round. Nothing happened. I'm quitting. Well, there's a couple of things I want to address on this. Number one, the majority of people who try fixing their own credit on their own, no assistance, no credit repair company, no credit Versio, the vast majority of them quit. And the reason why they quit is they don't know what to do next. They think that this is a one and done situation. They send a dispute letter, wait for the results, and everything that they disputed should come off the credit report. That's the misguided belief that a lot of people are under in the credit repair space. And that's just simply not true. In fact, in the credit repair industry that I've been very fortunate and proud to be a part of for almost 10 years, it'll be 10 years in October, we have a saying, and the saying goes like this, that credit repair really begins at the second round. Now, true, a lot of the low-hanging fruit is going to come off on the first round. Old paid collections, things that are so old they can't be verified. There are certain disputes or certain accounts that once they get disputed, the default reaction, just with nobody looking at it, the default reaction from the data furnisher, aka creditor, is just to delete the account. And those usually fall under that category that I was telling you, that they're old, they're paid, they're outdated in some way. Maybe they've been archived by the data furnisher. They don't really have any way to verify that the information is reporting accurately, so they delete it. So that's your low-hanging fruit. Okay, anybody can do this. You could send just a generic template saying, hey, I question the validity of this account. Please do an investigation on the accounts that you want to dispute. And that low-hanging fruit, that stuff is probably just going to come right off. Okay, a lot of times it doesn't take really anything special. Okay, all right. So what is credit repair for then? I mean, what really happens after round one? Let's say you're that person or people in the last 6 or 7 days or so that made a post or emailed in saying, hey, got the results from my first round dispute, nothing happened. Is this the end of it? Actually, no. It's just the beginning. So what a lot of data furnishers know, and by the way, I'm going to give you my opinion here. I don't have any evidence to back this up. This is an observation that I've made. It's been my experience for in the time that I've helped thousands and thousands of clients, and not to include the tens of thousands that are involved in Credit Versio. I believe what happens when you send in that first round dispute is that for accounts that don't get deleted, there is an auto reply from the data furnisher. Data furnisher equals the people, company, whoever is reporting data to the bureau. Call them creditor. You can call them whatever you like. And I think what happens a lot of the times is they respond by saying, hey, all this information is reporting accurately. It's been verified to be reporting correctly. Now, if you've done disputes before, maybe you're in your second or third round with Credit Versio, you've probably seen this response. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean they really did an investigation? Per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, that's a requirement. They're required to perform what is called a reasonable investigation. Now, that leaves itself open to interpretation, but I think everybody can agree that reasonable at least means something had to have been done. And we get these responses on our first round saying that information has been verified to be reporting correctly and accurately. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that they really did something? My opinion is probably not. I think what happens a lot of the times is they understand that there are a lot of people out there that are like the person that made that comment, a couple of people actually, who made the comment on Facebook, that they did one round, nothing happened, so I'm going to jump ship. Gave it a try, nothing happened. This doesn't work. I'm just gonna suck it up. And if there are things that are on my credit report that are truly wrong, that they're incorrect, I know that this is not right information. Or even if it's an account that you're looking at kind of with a skeptical eye, and you're not quite sure that it's right. The point is, round two is where you follow up and you reply with, I don't agree with your assessment that this is reporting accurately. Tell me how you came to that conclusion. It's your legal right to ask them how they did it. Now, they're not going to provide you with things like the original contract and the sign. I know there's a lot of bad information out there that says, ask them for the original contract. Well, you're not going to get that from the credit bureaus, because why would they have it? Credit bureaus are just repositories of data. They're not going to have any of that information. And even if they don't have it, that's fine. There's no law anywhere that says they have to have that on file. So we get a lot of bad information from so-called credit gurus that are online selling products or on YouTube or whatever. You can ask them for things that are relevant to the account. You can ask them for the results of the investigation. Now, they're not going to provide you details or sketches or anything like that. But what happens is, when you follow up disagreeing with the outcome, that changes the criteria a little bit. It lets them know that, okay, you're not going away. They have to do the job this month that they were probably supposed to do the month before. Maybe they didn't do it. We don't know. We're not working inside the credit bureaus. We don't know exactly what was done. We're not working at the offices of the data furnishers, so we don't know exactly what they did or didn't do. But if you get that response from round one and it says everything has been verified to be reporting accurately, that's where you go to round two. Round two will disagree, and round two will ask them, provide some kind of documentation. Let me know how you came to this conclusion. It doesn't matter if it's Credit Versio, if it's a high-end white glove credit repair company. Everybody in this space knows that's what you do. You go to round two. It doesn't matter what they said on round one, except if they send you a letter saying we couldn't conduct your investigation because we don't have the proper ID. Okay, that's why in tutorial video one, quick start video one of the first things that I tell you to do is make sure that you upload your ID. Got to have that driver's license or passport or state ID. Okay, got to have a recent utility bill, insurance statement, pay stub is okay, cover page of your bank statement. It's got to show their name and address and your name and address. So they want to be sure that you are you, that this is being submitted by you. It's a legitimate dispute. Now, if you get that kind of a response, that's an entirely different story. Okay, Melinda, let's take a quick break here. Melinda's got a question. I sent my first round this week. Should I send the same dispute 2 times before round 2 comes? Not sure. Should I send the same dispute 2 times? No. So, Melinda, I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but let me just lay down some ground rules. When you send your dispute, you want to dispute all the accounts you intend to dispute on one letter. You don't want to break them up into multiple letters. Bureaus don't like that stuff. They look at that like you're trying to game the system. So you send one dispute to each bureau if in fact you have information on each bureau. Duplicate dispute? No. You don't need to do duplicate disputes. Make it really clean. One dispute per bureau. Include all the accounts that you want to dispute on your dispute letter. And then you wait. Okay? Wait 40 days. Credit Versio will automatically update. It'll bring in your new credit report. It'll scan everything. It'll tell you exactly what happened, what's been deleted, what was repaired, what accounts had no change whatsoever. And on those counts, the ones that are negative, the ones that you disputed the month before, it will escalate those automatically into round 2. All of the dispute reasons change, especially if there's an error or discrepancy. The AI in Credit Versio is phenomenal. It's actually better than any human processor. It will notice even the most minute things on a credit report from one scan to the next. And then what will happen is, let me put a pause real quick. I've got John Olsheimer calling me. So John, who usually joins me, I'll just open it up for him just in case he wants to come in. Okay. Sorry for that interruption. If you're with me for the very first time, John Olsheimer, who formerly with FICO and Equifax, he's America's #1 credit expert. He joins me a couple of times a month, but at the moment he is in California testifying. That's what he does. He spends most of his time as an expert witness in federal and state civil lawsuits. So that is where he is right now. Hold on, let me see if I can. I beg your pardon here. Let me just text him because he might be trying to join us. I'll just let him know that we are right in the middle of it right now. Okay. Okay, sorry about that. All right, thank you. We didn't lose anybody, so thank you for sticking with me. I believe what John is trying to tell me is that he might be out of court right now, and he might be available to the Facebook Live. Okay, Melinda, following up here, looks like, so let me know if you have any questions about that. But really what Credit Versio is going to do, in a nutshell, is it's going to escalate the disputes based on the data that's on the credit report itself. That is a game changer in this industry. Basically what you used to do, in fact, this was my previous life in credit repair before I came to Credit Versio, is we had an entire team of data processors, anywhere from, depending on the time of year and the workload, anywhere from about 20 to 25. I think at one time we might have had as many as 28 people. And all they did is look at credit reports all day long, trying to find differences from the credit report that just got imported now and the credit report that we had from the month before, trying to figure out what was deleted, what had changed, if there's anything significant that needed to change, or that had changed that we need to make note of. Well, the great thing with Credit Versio is it does all of that automatically for you, and it does it at a much higher level than a human being can, because, you've seen your credit report. It's 15, 20, 30, 40 pages long, and you got to account for everything that took place from one credit report to the next. So you're looking at a lot of data. It's very hard. It's not something that human beings do particularly well, but software does it beautifully. Okay. Let me give you another tip here. So let me see if okay. All right. Thank you for being with me. I thought that John might be trying to chime in, but he's just getting out of court and flying back to Atlanta. Okay. apparently he forgot that we were doing a live at this very moment, so not a problem. All right, so let me give you a little bit of advice on the dispute process. And this came up today on a ticket. And I've seen this a couple of times before this week. Sometimes I get these questions that come in. Usually they're like, hey, what's the best dispute reason? Well, I had somebody email support today and said, hey, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. My dispute reason that I'm using is I couldn't pay my bills because of COVID. Okay. So the only reason for anything to ever get removed from a credit report is either it's outdated, incomplete, erroneous, wrong, so it's just clearly wrong, or the fourth one is unverifiable. Okay, so erroneous, incomplete, outdated, unverifiable. That's right out of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Now, there's a couple other reasons why that go into like FACTA, which is the FDCPA, which is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and this has to deal with collections. But still, the only reason why accounts get deleted are for those reasons. Is it supposed to be there? Is it being presented in a way that's accurate and that's verifiable? Well, to be straight up with you, the biggest reason of why accounts get deleted from credit reports is because they're just not verifiable. Okay, sometimes they're incorrect, but a lot of times the data furnisher just doesn't want to deal with it. They don't have the ability to go back and check everything. They don't have the interest to do it. And sometimes the bureaus will also delete things just because they're not getting the proper response from the data furnisher. Ultimately, the bureaus are culpable for the information that's on the file. Even though the bureaus are really just repositories of data. Think of them as big file cabinets in the sky. All they're doing is presenting the information that our data furnishers, our creditors, give them. But they do have some responsibility. They do have to make sure the information is reporting accurately. And they do rely heavily on the data furnishers to prove that and to verify that. But if the information looks wrong, if it looks a little dangerous to them, if it looks like it's that they're being exposed to some risk, because when people sue their creditors and the bureaus for wrong information, there's always two defendants or more, at least two defendants. You have the data furnisher, the creditor, and then you're going to have at least one bureau most of the time. Case in point, I had a long time ago, I had some information on my Equifax credit report that I disputed. It just came out of nowhere. It was from an old derogatory account that had just aged off. It wasn't even deleted, it just aged off. And then one day it popped up back on my credit report. It dropped my scores. I remember actually very vividly because I'd worked a long time to get my credit back on track. And it dropped my scores, I want to say almost 100 points or maybe a little bit more than 100 points. And the creditor was Aquin. It was an old second mortgage from back in 2003, I think. And I wrote to the bureaus. I mean, that was my business. I knew what I was doing. I wrote my dispute letter, and TransUnion took it off immediately. Experian took it off immediately. One dispute and it was off. Equifax, however, didn't budge. And I disputed it a second time. And then finally, at that time, just happens that because I was in that industry, knew a lot of attorneys who specialized in consumer protection law, specifically the FCRA. And he said, hey, you've got a case, man. Give all those letters to me. Let me take care of this for you. And we ended up going to court. Didn't go to trial or anything. We were just sitting in front of the attorney for Equifax and the attorney for Aquin and my attorney, who really didn't do a lot of the work. I kind of got up and explained why this was not reporting correctly. It was actually pretty entertaining. But we just went back and forth until we agreed on a settlement. It was a pretty nice. I mean, I didn't get rich, obviously, but we could have bought a pretty nice used car off of the check they had to write to me. So these things do happen. The whole point of that story is that bureaus are ultimately responsible for the data that's on there, and they may unilaterally decide to remove things from credit reports. Now, on your dispute letters, you still have to stay in line with what works. Circling back around, we had this person email in, and I've seen these comments before, saying, hey, my dispute reason is that COVID. Well, it's not really a reason. And the reason that claiming COVID is not a good dispute reason is because there's nothing about that justifies any kind of derogatory credit. Now, yes, I'm gonna talk out of both sides of my mouth there. Yes, everybody understands that a lot of people went through very tough times, which is why creditors provided an accommodation. Okay, that's the key thing. A lot of creditors, a lot of mortgage companies, auto lenders, credit card companies, but you had to ask for it. You had to ask. Not student loans. You didn't have to ask for. That was automatically given. But everybody else, you had to call, and they were going to be very accommodating. We've seen this a lot on credit reports where there's a note about debt relief or credit. I can't exactly remember the language, but it was relief due to COVID. So, and the reason for that is the reason why you want to stick with disputes that talk about the reason why it's not reporting accurately. Now, whether Credit Versio is giving you that dispute reason, which it will, if it sees an error, even if it doesn't, it's going to give you a suggested reason. If you want to use that, great. If you have your own reason, great. But still, you want to stick with factual information. A long time ago, I'm going back 23, 24 years, I used to work for Saturn, the auto company. Short-lived, unfortunately, but it was a really great experience, fun company to work for. One of those I think they're the ones that really created the no haggle, no hassle pricing. And I used to be a sales and finance manager. And I remember there was this couple, great couple, I can still picture them in my head. And I was trying to get them into a car. They really needed help. Credit, not good. But they had really good explanations. And this is back before I just had really a cursory knowledge of credit. And one of my reps came in. Her name was Aida, and she repped our kind of backup to GMAC when GMAC was still around, doing our primary financing. And she sat down at my desk, and we're going to go through my rough files, the ones where I was trying to get her to buy the papers so I can get these people into a car. And I started going through the whole story, like, okay, here's this couple, they got this going on, and this is how they corrected this, and this is the... And she let me go on for about maybe 20 seconds, 30 seconds. She's like, hold on, David, stop. Let me tell you something. No bank is a story bank. And really what she was saying is the only story that we need is on the credit report. We don't need their version of it. We want the creditor's version of it. And I remember that was so impactful for me that here I am 22, 23 years later talking about it. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is the same thing applies here with your disputes. Okay, bureaus are not story bureaus. Your creditors are not story creditors. They don't care. If you're disputing something, they need to know why it's not on there correctly. Is there an error? Is there something about the account that's not right? And that's really what Credit Versio is doing as a software when it scans your credit report. It's looking at everything and saying, all right, here's where there's an error. And when you see the suggested reason in Credit Versio, if you see that word error there, it means that Credit Versio's got a pretty good idea that there might be an error. It's not 100% ironclad except for a handful of occasions, but that's what the dispute process is all about. Hey, JL67, welcome back. Good to see you. Mike, I could have sworn you said you were going to be out. Did you say you were on vacation? I know I was chatting with you. I think it was you. On our chat last week, and I thought you said you were going to be in California, but I could be wrong. Okay, well, I'm glad you're here. Regardless, I'm glad you're here. Appreciate it. Okay, so stick with disputes that explain why something is not on the credit report the way that it should be, and you'll have much better luck. Writing and saying, "Hey, well, I don't think this is fair." I wasn't working at the time, or the worst ones are, hey, my spouse was supposed to pay the bill and he didn't or she didn't. I co-signed for my son or my daughter. They never made the car payment. These are all things that are part of life, and they're certainly understandable. But these are not explanations that will get accounts removed from credit reports. Are you familiar with a goodwill letter. And if you are, do a like or say yes. I want to get a feel for how familiar you are with that, because I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on that part, on the goodwill letter. I'll give you guys a second. Say yes, say no. Let me know if you're familiar with a goodwill letter. Oh, Mike, you're sitting in the pool in Long Beach. Wow. That sounds like fun. I am doing the opposite of sitting by the pool in Long Beach. Okay, so Russell says no. Okay. Appreciate the response, Russell. Okay. So, Mike, I'm going to get your question here in just a second, but let me cover a goodwill letter. Goodwill letters are one of those things that tend to get abused a lot or misused a lot. And people will send goodwill letters to the credit bureaus, which is not the place to send them. All right, so here's a goodwill letter. A goodwill letter is used directly to the creditor themselves. Okay, you're not going to send these to the bureaus. And these are the circumstances. Well, let me go back. I'll explain what the goodwill letter is. The goodwill letter is essentially saying that, hey, I've been a good borrower in the past. Okay, I've been paying everything on time. So this is great for a credit card, auto loan, mortgage, really just about anything. And I went through a spotty period of time. Okay, what that means is maybe you got a couple of 30s, maybe a 60, maybe a 90. 90 is going to be a little bit tougher. But you have minor derogatories, 30s and 60s for the most part. And then you get back on track. Okay, so this is really common with people. Just because somebody has some late payments doesn't mean it goes into complete default. Doesn't go 90 day, then 120, then 150, and then charge off or repossession. So if you've got a really good history of paying on time, you've got some spotty payment here and there, but then you've gotten yourself back on track, that is an ideal candidate for a goodwill letter. And essentially what you're going to include in that goodwill letter is you send this to the creditor, and I highly recommend following up with a phone call, because this is very hands-on. And you say, hey, listen, I've been great. I have some late payments, and this is why. This is really the only time a store can help you, because you're dealing directly with the creditor. And you can say, listen, this happened. I was injured, whatever. Fell a little behind, but now I've caught up. And now I've been paying great for the last 6 months, and I would really appreciate it because of these circumstances, because I've been a great borrower, and I'm paying on time now, if you can remove the late payment history that I have in that moment of time, whatever that is. Usually these are not stretched out over a long period of time. Usually a couple of late payments is ideal for a goodwill letter. Now, this is not going to take care of a charge-off. Okay, this is an account in good standing. That's it. Account in good standing. Only with an original creditor, like your bank, your credit union, perhaps perhaps your mortgage company. So that's how you want to use a goodwill letter. Okay, so Mike's got a question here, and let me know if you have any questions on goodwill letters. Would a personal letter to American Express explaining why they should approve me? No, Mike, I don't think so. So Mike, I remember we talked about this when John was on with us several weeks back. While a personal letter could be a good thing for sending a goodwill letter in to remove late payments, creditors have lending guidelines. So they have certain scores that they want to see. They have other guidelines they want to see. If you apply and they don't approve you, they're going to tell you why. Or if they need more information, they're going to ask for it. Like a case in point, I got a Citibank card from Costco a few months back. Actually, it was December. And they didn't approve me on the spot, which I was a little surprised. But I called them, and they're like, oh, yeah, it just got hung up. Looks like you had a fraud alert on one of your bureaus. And I had to answer a couple of questions, and that was it. So Mike, if they're not approving you and they're not coming back saying we need to get a little bit of information from you, it means that you're probably, I think you told me one time that it might have been an old bankruptcy. I think that's what we were talking about on one of our live sessions. And you know what? That might be a lender guideline. That might be just a deal breaker for them. I totally get it. I think I shared this story with you too when we were chatting back and forth, that I would love to have an American Express card. I'd love to have their Delta card if I was going to be doing more traveling, which I plan to in the future. But I don't think I'm going to be able to get one. And I had this conversation with John too. I don't think I'll be able to get one, despite the fact that my credit card FICO scores are in the high 7s, low 8s. Everything else is fine. I don't think derogatory. I think it's unlikely they're going to approve me just because my American Express was a charge-off years ago. Okay, I tell this story all the time. That I went into a bad credit situation. That's how I ended up getting into this industry. And one of the cards that went into default was American Express. So, Mike, you and I might just be in the same boat. Although, I mean, you have a little hope to you because eventually, that bankruptcy is going to fall off at the 10-year mark. If it's a Chapter 7, 13. If it's a Chapter, 7 years. If it's a Chapter 13, 10. If it's a 7. But me, I think that note's always going to be there in my file with American Express, and that's what I've been told. So, all right, since it's been 5 years since, let me put this up on the screen, Mike. Since it's been 5 years since the bankruptcy, but I've reestablished credit. If I showed them my progress, I wonder if they would consider me. You can call Mike. Pick up the phone, give them a call, and see if you can get a hold of somebody who knows something. But I think they're just going to tell you they're probably going to tell you, well, we don't know. That's all done in a different department. But give it a try. And if you do, let me know how it goes. I'd be very curious. All right, JL, let's see. If not LexisNexis or SageStream, who houses public records? That's it. LexisNexis and SageStream, which they merged together recently, by the way, because I disputed a public record and they sent information they are not the ones who are housing the public record. Yeah, so the bureaus. So public records are the only type of accounts. They're not really accounts, but they're the records that the bureaus will actively retrieve. So everybody else supplies data to the credit bureaus. The credit bureaus go to SageStream and LexisNexis. I think there might be one or two more. They're lesser housing areas for that, but let me put that up one more time. Yeah, interesting. Well, I imagine they're probably going to tell you where it is, but if it's a BK, to be quite frank with you, unless you've got something on that bankruptcy that's wrong, really egregious, bankruptcies just don't really come off that often. TransUnion, usually that's not too difficult, but you've really got to have an error on there. But try to find out who's housing it. Typically, the bureaus will let you know where they access the information. Eddie, any suggestions for garnishments? Not really, Eddie. A garnishment is usually the result of a judgment. And if you got a judgment against you, there's nothing you can do, really. You got to pay it. They hopefully they don't levy your bank accounts, but I know this is water under the bridge, but really you want to try not to get to a place where they get a judgment on you, because they don't have to work with you anymore. They've got a judgment. It's a public record. It's not on the credit reports anymore, but they have pretty much carte blanche. They can do whatever they want. Everything from garnishing wages to levying your bank account. So, if you're struggling, maybe they might listen to you if you want to make some kind of an arrangement, but you'd have to work directly with the plaintiff. Mike, yes, we did. Thanks for that. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Where are we now? So we're sort of coming down to the end of this. If you have any questions about anything that I've covered, feel free to ask. I'll be on for another minute or two because I think I got to everybody on here. Yep, I don't think I missed anybody. Okay, perfect. So going back to factual disputes, try to keep emotions out of it. Try not to go into a story. Remember, when they're reading these disputes, I have heard stories of people writing pages and pages and pages of disputes. Obviously, take as much time or space as you need to properly explain what's going on. But I don't know that I've ever seen a dispute that couldn't be explained in more than 4 or 5, 6 sentences or so. If you're doing a custom dispute, which, by the way, you'll hear me say this in the tutorial videos, the best dispute reason of all time is a custom reason. So as brilliant as Credit Versio is at finding errors, the one thing it can't do is it can't read your mind. It doesn't know the backstory. If there's something, like for example, if you have late payments on here's a perfect example. So I did some repair for my girlfriend. So she had a couple of late payments from a credit card that she hadn't used in years, and she'd moved, didn't realize that that there was some kind of a renewal fee or something like that came up. Okay, it's perfectly legitimate. And when she talked to them, they said, "Oh yeah, you know what? Our apologies. We see that the account's been active for a long period of time. We should have notified you," and they agreed to remove the late payments, which I thought was great. But before that conversation took place, Credit Versio saw those late payments come up when she was doing her update. Now, Credit Versio sees late payments. That's it. It doesn't know the backstory. So it came up with a dispute plan to dispute those late payments just because they were there. In fact, it just provided a suggested reason challenging them. So I actually wrote a custom dispute reason, and I included the email from it was from Chase, saying that, hey, this was something that's going to be corrected on our end. You'll notice it updated on the credit bureaus. I mean, I probably didn't really even have to dispute it. They would have just done it on their own. But, you know, I'm covering my bases. I wanted to make sure that a dispute letter went out. And I put that evidence in there. And I used a custom reason. And essentially what I said is, hey, this wasn't supposed to be on here. This is an error on the side of Chase. They were gracious enough to remove it. I just want to make sure that takes place. And by the way, I've included a copy of the email that they sent saying that they're going to take care of this. Just wanted to also let you guys know. And it was removed. Probably didn't need that letter. But the point is that a custom reason with evidence is always going to be your best bet. Granted, now let me qualify this a little bit. I get it. I've personally enrolled thousands and thousands of people into full service credit repair before I came to Credit Versio. Most of the time, people don't have a specific reason. They're looking at doing some cleanup. They're going to challenge as much stuff as they want. That is your legal right. The burden of proof, the burden of performance is on the data furnisher. It's also on the bureau. So why not? Why not see if you can, catch them, catch them not paying attention? Okay, it happens. So when you send in your disputes, custom reason is the best. If you don't have a reason, Credit Versio can do the work for you. All right. I think that's pretty much it for questions. If you have any questions, if you're watching this on a replay on Facebook, feel free to ask your questions in the thread there. I get notifications when questions come up. Happy to answer them for you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.